Hey everybody, Eric Thurwanger here. Welcome back to another awesome episode of the Think Great Experience. I'm very excited, as I am with every episode. However, today I'm super excited because I have somebody on the show today that I am a fan of. We are joined by Laura Osnes, who is an actress. You are also a singer, a songwriter. You've actually produced content. You do so many things. I am so impressed with you, and I love watching you perform. Laura, welcome to the Think Great Experience.
Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for having me. I am very honored to be here.
Now, I know that today worked with your schedule because you are in quarantine right now. You are finishing up your 14-day quarantine in Canada for a new show that you're going to be on for Hallmark, right?
Yes, indeed. I crossed the border and Canada is still quite strict with their restrictions. And so I am just wrapping up. Today is the final day of my 2-week quarantine. I've had my little pup Lila here to keep me company. But it's actually been okay. It's been kind of nice. I've appreciated the peace and the downtime and have been pretty productive. And I'm excited. We start shooting in a couple days here.
Oh, that's so incredible. And this isn't your first Hallmark show, is it?
This is my 4th, actually.
Oh,
I've had such a great time kind of dipping my toe into the theater film world, having grown up on stage doing musical theater. And Hallmark has been a very safe and encouraging environment to learn and to grow. And I've just had so much fun doing these films.
And they have a huge fan base, Hallmark.
They do. They, it seems kind of silly and like lighthearted, and they're always like a little cheesy, and yet it's such a guilty pleasure. There are so many people that just like love having Hallmark on, and they're really doing something great. They're taking over TV. They have 3 channels plus a streaming network. So they know what they're doing.
It's a good time to be involved with them, I think.
Yeah, I agree. They put out over 100 movies a year. So, it's great for people like me who are actors, and they shoot them so quick. It's like a 3-week process. So it's hard to say no. And it's such a great little gig that can reach so many people and make them smile.
Well, we need more smiles today, huh? I mean, we really do. And let me ask you this. Every person that I interview on here, they've experienced the pandemic differently, whether they are in the restaurant business, or maybe they own a hotel, or whatever field they're in. Everybody's experienced it differently, but you're used to performing on stage. And those venues came to an abrupt halt.
Yeah.
What was that like for you as a performer to not be able to take the stage anymore? Because I'm a speaker and the stages were closed down for me. Now I had virtual, but it wasn't the same. But I can imagine when you're performing in front of a live audience, there's really nothing greater than that. So how did this impact you this last 15 months?
Very true and great question. I think the first couple months were very anxiety inducing. I had a whole bunch of concert dates that were scheduled and postponed, and everything kind of got pushed like 6 months, and then got pushed another 6 months, and then got either postponed another year or canceled completely. And so it's hard because, especially as an actor, and my business thrives off of large groups of people coming together and spectating something. And the nature of our work is so intimate. We're spitting on each other and singing on each other and breathing on each other and all the things that we really couldn't do during this time. So it was very scary at first. I think the main thing that hit me was, like, how are we going to make money? How are we going to pay for the things? My husband and I have a New York apartment. He's a photographer and has a studio in New York that also got shut down. And we have a house in Connecticut. And we are so blessed to live that lifestyle. But it was suddenly like, without anything coming in, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And so it was scary for a while, but it was interesting. I was so excited to see how the industry got very creative with ways to continue to create content during this time. I started getting asked to do some virtual concerts, which was crazy because, as you know, over Zoom, there's like a delay. So we had to record it and send, and we would pre-record and make videos and edit together, as well as do some live stuff. I had a friend that wrote a digital musical that I filmed with a group of friends of mine, like during quarantine.
Wow.
Money, we sold it online. You could buy the episodes and stream the entire thing. So again, like a little source of income. I started teaching, which was really fun. I taught a little bit before, but it was always kind of one-offs, like once a month, like a weekend or something.
Yeah.
now I have like regular students that I work with that I coach on, musical theater stuff. And
wow.
That's been really fulfilling and rewarding. And I filmed a Hallmark movie last summer too. One of the first back to production, the whole cast and crew quarantined together on site in Connecticut. I think they got a lot of out of work actors from New York, and we all quarantined together in Connecticut and were tested regularly and, able to make a movie last summer. So I just have been so grateful for the little opportunities, and the little things now are starting to open up. Like now I'm in Canada. I went to Florida twice to do a couple live concerts the last 6 months. So again,
how did that feel? How did that feel when you were in a live event again?
It was remarkable. Like you said, there's nothing like, it's not that I do this for the applause, right. But I have to admit that is an element that just is very gratifying. That there's someone there laughing at what I'm saying, responding to what I'm saying, being affected and able to applaud, because I did a few virtual concerts during this where it's like you finish a big number and then it's just like silence. Really
because you can't see the audience like you can when they're live. I mean, for me, I had a presentation I did, and there was 500, 600, 700 people on the call, but it was in a webinar format, so I can't see any of them. So I would deliver something that I thought was awesome, and it's crickets because they can't speak in. And I'm like, I really hope that went well.
Right. Exactly. I felt like I had to work twice as hard to keep up my energy because I wasn't getting fed anything back. And it made me really appreciate that the audience is a character in the stories that we tell. And
they're such an important part of the production.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this. And I know for me, it was weird being in this box and performing in here. And I don't consider myself a performer in your league by any means, but when I'm on stage, I have to do my thing. And to a certain extent, I'm adding some humor. I tell my story, which we talked a little bit about earlier, experiences in the Marine Corps. So they're on a journey with me. I feel that I remember the first few months of the pandemic, it was very awkward to operate in a virtual platform for me. It was, here, just sit down when you used to run all over stage. And I feel that for me as a speaker and a trainer, I became better through this process. So when I'm on stage now, because things have opened up, at least in the States, I feel I'm better on stage now than I was before I went into the pandemic. It forced me to sharpen my speaking skills.
Sure.
Did you experience anything like that too, where you were having this transformation during lockdown, during the pandemic?
Yeah, that is interesting. I feel like I learned a lot, and even from watching my students, I've learned a lot about even like acting for the camera, knowing that there's like one lens right there. And it's not about playing a whole theater and a whole audience, but about honing that in for that one eyeball.
Yeah.
And people who are watching on that side of the camera.
That's right. So
that was interesting to me. I also feel like coming back to live performances, we appreciate it more because we lived for a year and a half without it. And like we said earlier, appreciating an audience and the role that they play in what we do.
Yeah.
And just being so grateful for getting to do what we do and what we love as it slowly begins to come back.
Did you get nervous the first time you were going back on stage? So after all these months, and you're a true professional and you're absolutely amazing, but was there any like, wow, I haven't done this in a while? I mean, or did you snap right back into it?
I was kind of able to snap back into it. I'm trying to remember, but it was definitely like, the setup was different. Like I have, I'm in a dressing room by myself and wearing a mask up until the moment we're backstage. Like there's all these protocols that were in place that were different. I more was like, do I remember how to put on false eyelashes? Like it was more like, and do I still fit into my outfit? Like that, it was more that kind of stuff where I was a little like, oh, I'm rusty in that regard.
Yeah.
I felt like I did find little ways to continue to sing throughout the pandemic. So it's not like, although like your stamina is different. Like when you're suddenly doing a whole concert, an 80-minute concert, like I did find I was like tired by the end, like hashed in a way, but it's not like I was completely rusty. You build up your stamina when you're doing 8 shows a week to be able to sustain yourself through.
It did test your endurance getting back in there when you haven't done it for a while.
Yes. Totally.
I felt that too, although I was probably a little more nervous getting back on stage than you are, but there was a lot of unnatural components walking in and everybody's in a mask. And then they say, well, you don't have to wear the mask when you speak, but the audience will be wearing the mask. I'm like, all right, this is weird. And then somebody from the audience has a question and you can't hear them because they have their mask on. It was just weird. Or people are greeting you and everybody's doing the knuckles or the elbow.
Yeah,
I'm like, can you shake hands? And some people are like, no. Some people are like, I hug. And I'm like, all right, we're having conversations we never had before.
I couldn't meet people at my event. Like I usually go out and same thing, I sell CDs or I will sign, take photos, and that was not happening. So it's a good experience.
Well, hopefully everybody adapts and hopefully Canada's able to come back too, so they don't have to do all of this, because I'm supposed to go out there too, and I can't wait to get out there.
Restrictions slowly lifting here. Like they're starting to catch up, and I kind of caught the tail end of the strictest,
That's
time.
Awesome. So one of your moments of greatness that you had mentioned was your first big break. And your first big break on Broadway was being cast as Sandy in Grease.
Yeah.
Which, when my wife listens to this, it's one of her all-time favorite movies. So I know she's fired up about this. But what was that like for you? Because you went a number of years where you're learning your trade, right? You're doing smaller venues, maybe student films or whatever you do, right? Because I worked with a lot of actors and actresses that they would do your student films while they're building up their resume. And all of a sudden in 2007, you get your big break. What was that? What did that feel like for you?
Yeah, I really did grow up on the stage, and I was fortunate enough to, be in a suburb of Minneapolis where there is a lot of great theater, and, Minneapolis is a really great arts town. So I did a combination of like community theater and high school musicals, as well as professional musicals in Minneapolis at the Children's Theater Company and the Guthrie and the Ordway growing up, which I was really grateful to have. And so I ended up going only to college for 1 year, but I did not get into my first choice school, which was Cincinnati Conservatory. So I ended up going to University of Wisconsin, next door to Minnesota. They have a good theater program. I felt like I learned a lot. I'm really glad I went that year, but I got offered a job opportunity back in Minnesota to intern for a year at the Children's Theater Company in Minneapolis. And I grew up doing shows there, so I knew the team, and this was an opportunity to get paid for a whole year to do like what I was going to school for, essentially. And I thought school will always be there. I can always go back to school. This opportunity may not be there. And so I decided to leave school for a year and do this, which a good thing I did, because I met my husband that year, my future husband. And then the following year, this is a long story. This is the backup leading into the.
No, go ahead.
But the following year, when I would have gone back to school, I ended up booking Sandy in Grease at Chanhassen Dinner Theater.
I've been there. I have been to Chanhassen. Yeah.
It's the largest dinner theater in North America. Yeah. And so I was like, again, I got this role playing a lead, getting paid to do what I was going to school for. So I decided to hold off on school again and take that job. And it was during that I found out that NBC was having this TV reality show to cast Sandy and Danny in Grease the Musical on Broadway. And I was currently playing the role in Minnesota. And I wrote a letter.
All the stars were aligning.
That's exactly what happened. Like I look back and I'm like, this should not have happened. Like it was divine. It was a divine intervention.
Yeah.
I wrote a letter to my director and I said, I'm feeling like I need to fly to LA and do this. I had this pull like in my spirit that was like, go. Like, do this, go. And I just couldn't ignore that. It felt ridiculous. It felt completely just far-fetched. Like I said, I wrote a letter to the director, completely expecting him to be like, no, you can't take a weekend off and fly to LA for this. It's regional theater. Understudies don't go on that often unless it's And he gave me the green light and said, my understudy can go on. We'll make sure she's rehearsed and you should go. And so I stood in line with like thousands of people, and I kept making it to the next level. I had to call the theater back in Minnesota and be like, I have to stay an extra 2 days for this dance call. I have to stay one more day to get approved by the final judges. I made it to the next level. And I ended up making it to the final 25 that they chose from the LA audition. And then I had to go back for another week in December. That was November of 2006. I had to go back another week in December of 2006 for Grease Academy, which is basically like a Broadway boot camp for a week. And then I made it to the final 6 boys and 6 girls that were chosen of everybody in the nation to compete live on TV every week, like American Idol. Okay,
I have to ask you a question then.
Yeah.
When it's down to the six gals, 6 guys, and you were picked.
Yeah, I was picked.
So you became Sandy. When you're looking at these 6 guys, did you pick who eventually got picked?
No.
No? So you thought they were going to go a different direction?
Yeah. It's interesting. Part of the reality TV thing, they have the conventional choices of everyone who thinks like of Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta. You know what I mean? Yeah. They got these people. They got the other people who are like interesting personalities who have won people over throughout their weeks on a reality show that like appeals to America, because America voted. It was like American Idol where, it was halfway about being talented and being, right for the role, but also being
you got to be chosen.
Yes, being a personality that America somehow latched onto and believed.
That's right. You need votes.
Right, exactly. And so my nickname on the show, they called me Small Town Sandy, which at first, like, Egan, where I'm from, is not a small town. Like there were over 500 kids in my graduating class.
Right.
But that Midwest mentality, I think really did help me out of being the small town girl that like middle America wanted to vote for and believe in.
Yeah.
And so I actually really think that helped me. I don't know, being like, I don't know.
I think there's a lot to be said. I'm from California, but you can feel the different vibe in the Midwest. Yeah. Now that I live out here, people, when I first moved out here, people would say, well, coming from Los Angeles, what's different between Los Angeles and Minnesota? And I said, well, where do you want me to start? It's a long list, but there are great people out here, great values. They really care when they're asking you how you doing. They really care. In LA, it's a little different than some of the smaller towns in California, but people just didn't take an interest in their fellow person like there is out here.
Sure. And like, my theater and my family and whoever all got behind me. And as I sang every week, I feel like I kind of started as the underdog, the girl that was like saved. And like I said, I had hair, like I was a little bit unconventional. And then every week my performances I just continued to kind of prove myself. Well, the people who started as front runners had to kind of maintain place. And again, like it was divine how it all happened.
So what was it like when they told you that, you were it, you got the most votes? How did that all come about?
Yeah, it was live on TV, and it was down between me and the other girl, my friend Ashley. And the host, it was like we're all holding hands and we're waiting for the announcement. And I was engaged at the time. And so part of my story was the fact that I postponed my wedding to compete on the reality show, which was...
Oh, you got my vote.
Yeah, which was true. And the host said, looks like it's going to be a honeymoon in Hackensack. Laura, you're Sandy. And so the minute you said honeymoon, like knowing that was part of my story, it's like it all begins to kind of sink in. And like I've wanted to be on Broadway since I was 5 years old. I think the whole reason I did this show was because the prize was a lead in a Broadway show. I wasn't... I want to become a pop star. I'm going to get exposure. I was
right. You had a dream.
Yeah, I want to be on Broadway, and I had a dream, and this was like a possible way to get there. And so, it's like in that moment, your dream kind of comes true. And as I said, I felt like I was supposed to be there. Like I did have this, even though it was very kind of competitive atmosphere. I was 21. I was really young at the time. I hadn't lived much of life, and I'm getting my first ever like spray tan and stuff like that like comes with being on a reality show. Like, I just don't know these things, having grown up in Minnesota and being engaged at the time, that like I learned a lot, and it was remarkable. It was like, wow, my dream just came true. Like, now what? And in that year, that was March of 2007, and then we got married in May of 2007, moved to New York in June, and I made my Broadway debut in August of 2007.
What a run, huh?
It was a big year. It was a big year.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. How important prior to hitting the dream, before it happens, and even before the big break is possible, what type of mindset? I'm sure mindset has to be incredibly important for you.
Yeah.
And you may have some people listening to you right now that are thinking, I want to be a performer. I whether it's a singer or an actor, but their big break hasn't happened yet. And what type of mindset do they have to keep on going? Like, what were some things that you did to just continue to keep that drive going before? Because you're going down an uncharted path. You don't know what's next.
Totally.
You don't know when nobody knows when their break will hit.
That's so good. Such a great question. And as an actor, it's like, we're always looking for our next job. Like, it never ends. Even once Grease happened for me, it was still like, okay, I have a year-long contract, which is great. That's a year. That's a job. That's a year of work. Amazing. But like, what happens after that?
That's right.
So as far as mindset, it takes, let's see. I was like, so many things came to my mind.
Yeah.
First of all, there was a lot of rejection along the way. And I know I was only 21 when my big break happened, but like, I did not get Grease in community theater when I was 16. And I was in final callbacks for Sandy and I didn't get it. And I was devastated. And you have to realize that in the back, that story happened, and learn to deal with rejection.
Yeah.
And take that with humility, but don't let that be something that stops you.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Forward. And it's not, when rejection happens or you're told no, or that door doesn't open the way you think it's going to, it doesn't mean you weren't meant to do this and you shouldn't do it. It doesn't mean that you're not talented. It means it's not your time.
That's right.
So let those opportunities challenge you to get better and try next time. And
keep improving and never quit.
Yeah.
You've probably seen people leave the industry before their dreams happened. I mean, I'm sure that has to happen, right? Because the industry that you're in, whether it's singing or acting, those are industries of passion.
Absolutely.
When I worked in the film industry, I was behind the scenes. So even being in front of the camera right now, and I tell my team, it's always awkward for me. Because I went to school to be a filmmaker. I want to be a director and a cinematographer, whatever. I want to be behind the scenes. And
let's make a movie, Eric. We should make a movie together. I'm like,
I'm in. Okay, because that is okay. So I know goals are important. That's one of my goals, is to actually make a movie. So I'm in. We'll write a script. I mean, I went to screenwriting courses. I did the whole thing at USC. But it's interesting because now I coach businesses, and they hire people. Okay. When I was in the film industry, even the post-production side, so many people wanted to break into the business. They almost would work for free. And working out of my office in Santa Monica, people were coming from all over the country, all over the world to be in the film industry. So it's a passion industry, but then you'd see people sometimes quit or give up. And so I love what you're saying. They need to have that. They need to keep that drive alive, and I love that. Maybe it wasn't the right time for that project.
I tell my students too that I'm like, be patient. Like, had I stopped after that community theater, I didn't get it. My heart was broken. I'm devastated. Like, do I still do the show? Had I stopped there, like, I never would have known. Had I just looked back, like 3 years later, I won a national competition to play the same role on Broadway. Nice. So just keep showing up, keep working hard.
Right.
Yes, be patient. And then I also say plow your own path. Because I had a very unconventional path. I didn't get accepted to my first choice conservatory college. I don't have a degree in this. I followed an opportunity that came my way that most people probably would have been scared to even pursue. And let's be honest, I was scared, but I tried to go about it the right way, getting permission from my director. It was like the stars aligned. And if you don't even have the courage to put yourself out there and say, let's see what happens, then
right.
You don't know if that door is going to open or not. So.
Well, and I think that really ties in with, I know a trait for you that's really important is confidence.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that, to have confidence means that you've also not had it, right? So it's not like we always have it, and we're going to have dips in it or certain levels, but how important is it for somebody to just maintain their confidence or their belief in themselves through all these times?
Really important. And that is easier said than done. You're absolutely right. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to, if you know in your heart that you were born to do this, which I feel I was. I feel like I was put on the planet to sing and dance and act. It's what lights me up. I do it for myself, but and then a residual effect is that it makes other people happy.
Yeah.
But you can't do it just for the validation of everyone else, because there's haters out there and there's critics out there who are going to try to tear you down. And it's a competitive industry where there are a lot of people trying to do the same thing, like you said. And so you have to trust that you have something special to offer, and owning what makes you unique and special and the gifts that God gave you and that you've been developing and training for your whole life will eventually align with an opportunity where you will get to use those gifts and shine. But it takes a lot of rejection and a lot of no's and doors closed, and you just have to continue to show up. And I think as an artist, we are passionate people, as you said, and we love what we do. And you have to love it, because if you don't, or if you start to take rejection personally,
that's
that confidence erodes, that you won't last very long. So you
how important was it for your confidence, or even for overcoming rejection, to have a support system like your husband or your family? I mean, how critical is it to tap into them at those moments where you might feel like you're lowest?
So important. I'm like getting verklempt thinking about it. I feel like I am where I am today because I had parents that said yes to me. And I know that alone is a huge gift that so many kids do not have right now, especially when they're wanting to pursue theater and have dreams of being on Broadway. My parents, and my dad is an eye doctor. He's an optometrist. Like, he's musical, but never theatrical. I can imagine his like dread when I came out going, I want to be on Broadway. And he's like, that's not something that, has longevity in a career, or has, safety as far as security in jobs and in income and stuff like that. So, I often talk to my dad about that, and he's like, I had a plan of like, once you graduated college, like helping you move to New York and like coming out, and I had a fund set aside to help pay for an apartment. Like, but they still said yes. They still believed in me. And I know that is a huge gift. And my mom had her own business and worked at home, so had some flexibility to be able to drive me to rehearsals and dance practices and things like that. And I recognize what a huge gift that is. That is half of that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I have had the opportunity to work with your dad many, many times. And I can tell you right now how proud he is of you and how proud Carol is of you. In fact, the first time I got to see you perform was because Carol sent us information about your performance in Broadway, that they had captured the play on the video. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's on Bandstand.
Yes.
And so that Broadway performance was captured on film or video, and they actually played it at a theater near us, and we went to see it. And I fell in love with that whole thing. I mean, from the moment it started till the end, it was awesome. And I'll tell you, your performance was absolutely phenomenal. You have an amazing voice. And so, I didn't know what to expect, because I hadn't seen anything from you yet. So Carol's like, you should check this out. And we trust Carol.
Right.
But if this didn't work out, I was gonna be like, well, I don't know, Carol. But anyways, I go there. And one of the things I loved about it was the story of Bandstand takes place right after World War II.
Yeah.
And so, and so I have some questions for you, because I know that you get very into your performances. Even we were talking about some of the research you're doing for your new Hallmark movie. And I have to imagine, as a sommelier, which is awesome. Yeah, I have to imagine that you probably studied that time period back then.
Yes, for Bandstand. What was amazing about Bandstand, and thank you for going to see it, and I would think with your military background that hopefully it touched your heart.
I was listening for things. I'm like, all right, let's see how accurate they get this. I feel that you guys nailed it.
That means the world.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that was the goal. We were actually recognized by an organization called TAPS, Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, and Got Your Six. And Got Your Six actually awards projects in the entertainment industry who truthfully depict soldiers and veterans and their stories. And so we were honored by them, and so just proud and grateful to have that. But the main core group of leads, which was the band in that show. If those of you that don't know, it's about a group of World War II vets that returned from World War II and start a swing band to compete in a competition. And I play a war widow who lost her husband in battle and gets roped into being the singer of the band. And it follows their story and how their relationships with each other and the music that they create really helps heal them from their traumatized past from the war. And we had a roundtable discussion, the guys in the band, with about 7 veterans who had served in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And we talked for like 5 hours and got to ask them questions and hear their stories. And I have to be honest, so many of their firsthand stories and their mannerisms and things they talked about made it into the show. We kind of handpicked things like that. And knowing that we all shared that discussion together, we had that base, that groundwork of backstory and subtext that we could bring into our performances every night. Yes, I did research and looked up photos and about World War II specifically. I've also done South Pacific on Broadway, which takes place at the same time. So I had a little bit of that knowledge already, having played a World War II nurse in the South Pacific. And so, but I have to be honest and say that roundtable discussion specifically and hearing, because a lot of people don't talk about it. No, it's not, civilians don't know how to respectfully ask veterans about their stories.
Well, I can see why that production was recognized by veterans organizations, because it does depict it very accurately. And yes, it's in a play setting, and and I get all that, but that there were certain, I picked up on the nuances or even the dialogue, the way they said things. You could tell that they were focused on honoring the veteran or military community.
Yeah, that was.
And so I came out of there. I really enjoyed it, because there are a lot of movies, and Hollywood sometimes doesn't favorably portray everybody, and a veteran will pick up on it in an instant. And it'll be everything from the uniforms to the haircuts to the dialogue, even saying 0600 versus 0600. One branch says it one way, another says it another. So you listen and you're like, all right, they were nailing it.
Right. That was written by someone who didn't know. Yeah. That's
right. Well, it's weird, even in the movie, A Few Good Men, there's a part where Jack Nicholson says the plane took off at 0600. And I'm like, all right, I'm out. A Marine would never say 0600, it's 0600. I'm like, why can't you, did the consultant for the military go on leave during that shot? So, and it takes you out of the moment. So the fact that you did all that research, had the discussion with these guys, that speaks volumes to us as veterans. And there's millions of us out there. You have an audience of veterans that have seen that absolutely love it. And we are enthused when we see somebody put a little bit of time into getting it right,
Thank you for saying that. And I'm sure there are things that we didn't get right, but that is also a testament to our writers. They did their research. They had family members who served. And all of those roundtable discussion guys and women, there were a few women as well, came to see our show multiple times.
Great.
We did give feedback when we were in previews and stuff, when we could still make changes, which we valued so greatly. We also dedicated every show to a veteran. We had a veterans wall backstage where we had tons of pictures of family members, and fans became aware of it as well. And so even people who came to see the show would bring photos for us to add to the board, and we would dedicate every performance.
Wow. Did you get a lot of feedback as you were doing the show? Did people come up to talk to you? Did veterans approach you differently than other audience members?
Yes, we got a lot of veterans at the show. And if ever we met someone at the stage door who said they had served, we brought them backstage. We tried to just honor them and go, come backstage, come and meet everybody. And we got a couple coins that, the cast started to collect.
The challenge coins
from people who had served. And that I have a whole new appreciation after having done Bandstand for our servicemen and women who have made that ultimate sacrifice.
So I'll tell you, if they awarded you a challenge point, that's one of the highest honors you can get. So if they don't feel you depicted them correctly, you're not getting that coin, right? You might get a few other things, but you're not getting the coin. Sure. It's interesting. I still speak for the military. So I go around and I speak at units and commands. And no matter how much I love speaking, even, and some of them even hire me for events, and I'll go out and I'll do coaching training sessions, and they'll hire me to come out to a base and whatnot. It doesn't matter to me about the pay. At the very end, if the commanding officer awards a challenge coin, I know I did a great job. So, and they usually present it to you in the form of a handshake and so on and so forth. There's a formality to it. So the fact that you and your team earned coins is huge in the military community. So anybody listening right now that served needs to see this production. I mean, and I know it's they can watch it. It's been filmed.
Yes.
Do you think it'll come back to the stage?
I think, usually for a Broadway show, it takes about 10 years for something to get revived if it's popular. To be honest, we only ran about 5 months on Broadway. It was not a gigantic commercial success.
Yeah.
And I know that it touched so many people, and I'm thrilled that they filmed it so that it can live on. And there's also a cast album. The musical is called Bandstand, and usually it is re-aired and available to stream on patriotic holidays. So
I have the soundtrack. Carol gave me the CD also.
Oh, good.
I have it in my car. I mean, I kind of have to stream it now, but yeah.
It is. I mean, the music is great. It's kind of that.
I was a fan of the big band era anyways.
And
like I love the big band era. So the music in that, your singing in that, the performances and the focus on veterans. I mean, to me, that makes me want to go see more plays. So, when you're talking the powers that be, there's 2 million men and women who are serving right now, and then millions more who are veterans. We need more representation on the stage. So
I completely agree. And
that will get me out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah, but you know what? You pulled us in. That was the thing. You pulled us into your performance, and we believed what was happening there. And my wife and daughter, they went to see it with me. Gina and Erica were there, and they loved it. Absolutely loved it. We were like hooked the whole time. And you never know what to expect. So hats off to you for an amazing, amazing performance.
Thank you for saying that. I love talking about Bandstand. It was the most fulfilling, rewarding thing I've ever done, because we felt like it wasn't just an entertainment, like a show for entertainment. It felt like we were really changing and affecting and healing people through what we were doing.
I can see why. So what do you have on the horizon for you now? Obviously, you're one day away from quarantine. You get to start shooting your new Hallmark movie.
Yes.
But what are some of your goals? I know you have so much ambition, so much drive, so much vision. What's in the horizon for you? What are some of the things that are important goals for you right now?
Thanks for asking. So I get to start shooting my 4th Hallmark movie in a few days. And I'm very excited and grateful to be up here doing that. That will probably come out this fall. But I also, this coming fall in November, I actually started a concert series that I co-created with a friend of mine 6 years ago called Broadway Princess Party. And it was initially intended to be like a one-night concert of like me and my girlfriends all singing Disney princess songs. I played Cinderella on Broadway. So like I hosted the night, and like Pocahontas came to my party and did her song, and Princess Anna came and did her song. And
sure,
actually, like the energy in the cabaret room that night was like palpable, and everybody was so blown away by each other. And it was kind of this like women supporting women, and that the venue was like, we have to have you back. This was one of the most successful shows we've ever done. Cut to 2 years later, we had a series of 6 sold out shows at that venue. And then we did another 2 years of touring around the country. We started, we brought on Susan Egan, who was the original Belle in Beauty and the Beast on Broadway. And Courtney Reed, who was Jasmine in Aladdin on Broadway. And we made it a three-person show. And we started an official like LLC and like had a merch line and started reaching our fans across the country at various clubs and performing arts centers for 2 years. And it grew into a thing where during COVID, we had a whole bunch of concerts that were canceled and pulled, but we started establishing a relationship with Disney.
I was going to say, they have to be figuring into this somehow.
Yes, exactly. And Susan and Courtney, having worked with the Disney theatricals before, had connections. And during COVID, we formulated, it's going to sound like it happened so easily. It didn't. It was a long time, but we finally this spring launched an official partnership with Disney.
Wow.
And we will be touring the country starting November 1st to over 85 cities as now Disney Princess, the concert. So we still have our LLC. We are co-producing with Disney, but we have a whole tour of cities coming up, and so I'm really excited for that. It feels like it's been 6 years in the making, and it started as just a one-time little thing that.
I have to imagine the little girls that are going to come out and see this are going to go nuts.
Totally. And we get so many, it's the parents with the kids who are now in with Moana and the Disney princesses of, they say, Frozen and all of that. It's people my age who grew up with Ariel and Belle and, still have an affinity for those movies, those songs, those characters. And then it's like, full families. We have a very large, it's the people who love the like animation and go to like Comic-Cons and dress up. Like that audience comes from Broadway fans who've seen us in New York. So we have really realized that we've reached a wide demographic with this type of concert. And again, we are so thrilled. I think that's why we didn't expect it to ever become so popular. But
the impact that you're making in people's lives with that show, these princesses, they empower these young girls, right? They're very empowering and strong. And, it's funny that you're doing this because on a much smaller scale, I took my daughter for 8 years in a row to the daddy-daughter dances out here. So now when we moved out here from California, I had never heard of them. And Erica was 5 when we moved out here. And the girls came out earlier. And by the time I got here, Gina says, I signed you up for a daddy-daughter dance with you and Erica. And I said, that's great. I said, so what is that?
Right.
Like, what, do I have to dance? I'm not a dancer. She goes, well, I don't really know. I saw a flyer for it and I thought you'd like it. I get there. There must have been 200 dads there, each with a daughter, some with two or three guys with 3. And
wow.
I'm like, okay, so everybody's all in. But here's the funny part. Not only were the dads dancing until 9 o'clock, but you could be anywhere from the age 5 to 13 to be there. And then there was a cutoff. Okay. But they had young teenage girls there dressed as the princesses. And the youngest girls just gravitated to them. So wherever this little collection of princesses were walking, there was probably 40 or 50 little girls just attached to them the whole night. Right. Like the dads just follow the crowd around. These girls, they thought they were the real princesses. And for 2 hours, they couldn't get their eyes off them.
That is magical.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
We really do stress that in the show, that these women aren't just damsels in distress waiting to be rescued. Like you think back to like Belle, for example, trading her life for her father, having the courage to, stay with the beast in the castle. That's right. She talks back to him too. Like she's not afraid. And these are strong women who really do have characteristics that are very, very admirable and can really inspire next generation. But it's not just a kids show. Like this is a full 2-act production. You're getting Broadway Tony Award nominated and Grammy nominated talent singing all of these songs. We're in gowns. Like it's a classy evening as well. It's not just
for the entire family. This is for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I love that because, I grew up obviously on the Disney films. And I remember right after, I think it was really The Little Mermaid that started a whole wave of this new look at Disney films. And then right after that, I'm not sure the order, it was Beauty and the Beast. And then the other ones were Aladdin. And they always had them as very strong role models.
Yeah.
So, it's great that you're going to do that. And I'm excited. Well, hopefully when you're in the Minneapolis area, we can come see it. I think it'll be awesome.
I know we're visiting Minneapolis in the spring, and I actually am not sure that I'm doing the spring leg of the tour yet, which is kind of a bummer if I miss out on Minneapolis.
In your hometown.
I know, but we will be around for a while. If it's not this year, obviously we're hoping to tour for a very long time. But you can visit Disney Princess Disney Princess Concert.com, and that was the website. You can see all the cities and hopefully come see the show in the next year.
And please send us some of the anything we could post on social for you.
Great, thank you.
We have talked a lot about all of the roles you've had or experiences in acting, but you're also a singer, and you have songs on Spotify. I was listening to them this morning. You're awesome. You're just so talented. Tell me a little bit about, what's that experience like singing? because not everybody does both. But
Sure.
you have a ton of passion for singing and songwriting.
Well, I've been singing my whole life, and I found that musical theater was where I could do it all. I could sing and dance and act. But I started taking voice lessons when I was like 8 or 9. And I've always just really, music has practically been my first language. It's something I always really loved doing. And I've been able to be on several original Broadway cast recordings. I have 2 solo albums. But they're not songs I've written. It's all like other people, it's covers and things like that.
Yeah.
But I do concerts, I do solo cabaret shows, and I have like 4 different cabaret shows that I do, and the one of which we recorded. So there's an album of that, which is great. And I just started, actually, it's funny you should say songwriting, because I've never written my own songs. That's never something I was like, I breathe life into other people's songs. And that's what we do theater writers or as theater performers too, that I'm like, give me a script, give me a movie, give me a musical, a show, I will bring it to life as the actor. And I've never really had the deep desire to want to write anything on my own. But during this, I've been in quarantine for 14 days, and I actually had a friend who has been encouraging me to songwrite. So I had a session last week and just got back a demo of like this first song that I co-wrote.
What did you think of it?
It's weird. It's scary. It's very vulnerable to write a song about your own experience. And you're like, what do I want to write about? I don't have stories to tell. What message do I want to share with the world? And it's very vulnerable, but we'll see. We'll see if this grows into something that I feel can become kind of a new outlet, a new facet of my creativity and my career. But I'm very nervous and trepidatious about it, but that's how I was about acting for the camera as well, because I've grown up on the stage and now doing these Hallmark movies. I was terrified at first, and now I'm like excited about it. I feel like I have a new feather in my cap. It's a new
well,
skill.
That's a whole different, the songwriting that's a whole different discipline.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know that, some of the times I've watched American Idol, and the person, they always sing a song that
Yep.
And it goes fine. And then somebody will say, I wrote my own song. And you're like, and it actually shifted the whole feel. Sometimes it was good. Sometimes it was like, well, okay, maybe just stick to singing, but it wasn't the best song. But yeah, it's a total different discipline to actually write a great song and sing a song great.
Very true.
But there's no doubt in my mind you're going to become a great songwriter too if you decide to do that. You already got over the nervousness part and you did it, which is amazing. I do have a question for you. As we kind of bring everything together, and there's people out there listening that probably want to follow in those footsteps, and maybe even if they don't want to be an actor or singer or songwriter or partner with Disney or any of the great things you've done. Now, maybe they do, but they also might just want to achieve some greatness in their life. Do you have any key points for somebody that's just saying, I want to achieve greatness in my life, whatever my definition of greatness is, I want to head in that direction? What would you advise them right now, especially as we come out of a worldwide pandemic?
Oh man. It's so good. And I think it actually is a little different for everybody, because people's personalities and goals and natural gifts and talents are different.
Yep.
But for me and my path and that drive to achieve greatness, like I've wanted to be on Broadway since I was 5 years old. I don't know how I knew that. I knew I loved to sing and dance and act. And Broadway was the pinnacle. Broadway is the best of what I personally felt I loved to do and was my passion and my gift. And so it's like I set my eye on that. Never guessed I would get there so soon in my career. I made my Broadway debut when I was 21, and never guessed I would get there via a TV reality show.
Right. I know.
So I think back to my youth and the steps I took, where it was like I thought I had a plan. I was going to go to Cincinnati Conservatory. I was going to graduate with a musical theater degree, probably get noticed at my senior showcase. My dad had set aside, money for an apartment to help move me to New York, to take time off. I had a plan in my brain, but it did not happen the way that I projected maybe it would. So I think part of you is yes, set the goals and see the dream.
Yep.
But be open to different ways of how to get there, and take it one day at a time. And as opportunities may come, like leaving school, because of this job, or like flying to LA to audition for this once in a lifetime, crazy, probably not going to happen opportunity.
Yeah.
Start to assess how those things can help you in your goal, and try to have the courage, develop the courage and the confidence, as we were talking about, to take a shot, take a leap of faith, because otherwise you will look back and you'll regret it. You will regret it your whole life. And I will have finished my run as Sandy in Greece at Chanhassen Dinner Theater, which was wonderful. Always wonder what would have happened if I had auditioned for that reality show. I probably would have got kicked off in the first round.
Yeah.
But hey,
I love that. I actually wrote that down because I always think about a title for the show. And I think that we just are encouraging people to take a leap of faith. I love that. Speaking of the Chanhassen Dinner Theater, I actually took my wife bought me tickets, and I took my daughter to see Frog and Toad there.
Yes.
The children's, the old book. I grew up on that book. I loved it. I got her into it, and we went and had a blast. So
that musical actually originated in Minnesota at the Minneapolis Children's Theater Company way back when, before going to Broadway. So CTC was actually the first regional theater to ever do that production and won the Tony Award for it. They won the Regional Theater Tony Award. So that specific musical is very, it's homegrown in Minnesota.
Yeah, well, we loved it. And I mean, our nicknames, my daughter's only going to be 15 soon, but she calls me Frog and I call her Toad. Somehow I got the frog, she got the toad, but that's been a part of our life forever. And seeing it on stage was amazing. Just her and I didn't know what to expect. I'm like, all right, well, how are they going to do this? And they nailed it.
It's so cute, right?
It was so awesome.
I have the soundtrack, and my dad and I still sing the cookie song. Eating cookies, we're so happy eating cookies.
That's right. That's one of the great stories in there. Well, and it's so funny because you could tell when they were doing certain books, right? When the cookie story came up, I'm like, yes. I'm like, all right, let me calm down a little bit. I'm like, I know that story. That was awesome. Well,
it's a very cute musical. It's very sweet.
Well, let me just ask you this. Speaking of a leap of faith, through your journey, through COVID-19, everything, how important has faith been to you? Having faith.
The most important thing. I mean, for me, I'm going to cry again.
It's all right. You can cry on this show.
I honestly think, I don't know how people survive without it. And especially in the industry when there are so many highs and lows and uncertainties and judgment and competitive negativity. And that I just, to have that rock for me, and to know that, like, yes, I need to show up, and a lot of it is in my hands, and me having that work ethic and that drive, the talent, whatever. But at the end of the day, like, knowing that I also can let go and trust in God's higher plan.
That's right.
And that no matter what happens on earth and the no's I get told, or the people who want to hate, or the whatever, that it's like, I am loved.
That's right. It brings you some inner peace, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the thing that keeps me going forward. It's the thing that, despite all of this, I can deal with it on this level.
Isn't it interesting? I mean, we do make plans, and there's nothing wrong with us making plans. I've even written a book about businesses having plans, which I think is important. But the highest plan out there is God's plan, and we don't know it.
Yeah.
We just don't know it. And as soon as we accept that we don't know it, and it's better than our plan, it's always going to be better. It's always going to be greater. His plan is greater than my plan. You know?
Amen. And I said earlier, I'm like, I had a plan. I had projected how I thought it might go.
That's right.
Little, I know, like God blew my mind with the plan that he had for me. And I think just trying to act in obedience, showing up, like, he's going to work the things together.
That he really truly gets you through the rejections. He gets you through the pitfalls, through the challenges, through the obstacles, if you allow him to. I mean, it's interesting because Gina and I had a plan. We got married and we were going to have kids a few years later, you know, just kind of the typical plan. Get a house, all that. Well, 10 months later, she got diagnosed with cancer. And part of the treatments was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was a stem cell transplant. And they made her sign a waiver saying, you'll probably never have children. And for 6 years, she didn't. And the daughter we have now is a result of us having to go through that plan. Because if we had kids on our own plan, we'd have a different daughter than we have right now. And so So it's interesting, the obstacles and the challenges, I never like to say it happened to you for a reason, but you can always make a reason out of what happened, especially if you have God at the center of everything, and keep that in mind, that he has a far greater plan for you than you ever thought of. So no matter how good our plans are, Laura, his plan is greater.
I completely agree. And it doesn't mean that bad things aren't going to happen, like you
That's
said.
right.
But and in fact, bad things do happen. And then a lot of people would maybe question their faith or be like, well, if God was good, if God was loving, this wouldn't have happened.
Why'd he do this to me?
Yeah, you've been through hell and back.
Yeah, we stopped questioning it a long time ago.
Yeah.
We know there's a plan. You know what? It's interesting. Every time something happens, it adds to the story that I share, and I impact somebody else in a different way I never thought I would.
There you go. That becomes your testimony.
Yeah. And I know you're impacting people like crazy. I know you are. And I'm excited for people to hear about you on this show, not just see you on stage, which is awesome. And I'm a huge fan, and not just listen to you on Spotify, which I do, and you're awesome. But sometimes it's great just to get to know the person behind all that greatness, and for people to hear who you really are. So I just wanted to say thanks for being on the show. I mean, it has been an honor to speak with you. And I wanted to ask, if people want to find out more about you and what you're doing, what's the best way to find you, follow you, support you? Where can they reach you?
Thank you for saying all that. And honestly, it's been an honor to be here. So thank you for having me and letting me share my story and bringing the faith element into it. I think it's really important. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Laura Osnes, my name, LauraOsnes. I also I recently have a website.
I saw that.
Friend that helped me do that. So I believe that is lauraosnes.com. But I am most active, I would say, on Instagram. I have a lot of friends on Facebook that are like, I didn't know you were going to be on this. I didn't know you were going to be on that. And I'm like, I've been posting about it nonstop, mostly Instagram. So I'm trying to get better about Facebook because my parents, Carol's on Facebook, my stepmom. And so I know that I have a whole audience on there as well who would appreciate getting updates.
Yeah.
So
that's the new one. You got to find the platform people use.
Yeah.
But we're on Instagram too. I love your posts. I love everything you're doing. You are impacting so many people, and I know that you encourage a lot of people to make those steps and those strides toward greatness today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody who's watching today and supporting.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on today, Laura.